Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some PathOfExile 2 discussion. In the next few hours, about 16 hours after I'm recording this video, and so less than after you're seeing it, PathOfExile 2 is going to go live into early access. This is all of the information Grinding Gear Games put out that's important to know before that takes place. So, the very first thing you're going to want to check is the time zone that's relevant for you. This is obviously going to depend whereabouts you are in the world. For me, located in sunny Melbourne, down in the southeast end of Australia, it's going to be 6 in the morning. For you, it could be something entirely different, but this chart shows most of the different time zones of the world, and if you're not in one of these time zones, you're probably out of one of them by 2 hours or less. Before you can play the game though, you're going to need to download all of the game files, and they're pretty chunky, weighing in at about 86 or so gigabytes, so you're going to want to get a start on that. You can get a start on that now. Fair warning, the direct download client from Grinding Gear Games is currently experiencing some problems at the time I'm recording this video. This is still 16 hours out though, and hopefully things will improve once there's no longer 500,000 people trying to use it. I've heard no real reports of problems with Steam or Epic Games, and I've heard no real major reports of problems either for PlayStation or for Xbox. It really seems to be just the GGG direct client. Pick the way that you want to download the game. If you are wanting to download the PC client standalone, then log into PathOfExile2.com using the same password credentials you'd use to access the game, and then download it from PathOfExile2.com/download. For Steam, you should be able to pre-download now, likewise for the Epic Games Store. Xbox and PlayStation 5 should be available now through their respective shops. As for the keys and the way that you'll be able to input your keys, that's going to vary with platform, but it should be fairly intuitive. Now, they have decided not to have a torrent as an option here, and the reason that they're not using a torrent is that they want to actually use this as a bit of a stress test for their servers. They had a lot of problems when it was midday my time that they were intending to put all of these things online. I'm recording this about 2 p.m, but midday my time, so 18 hours before the game went live, essentially the entire PathOfExile player base was basically doing an unintentional distributed denial of service on the Grinding Gear Games site, and that caused it to go down. The good old internet hug of death. Lots of people trying to get the same information at the same time, and the servers couldn't cope. Grinding Gear Games kind of want that stress test information because it's better to have the problems now, 18 hours before launch, than it is to have them at launch, and especially because they're undoubtedly going to need to do some last patches just before the launch goes live as well. Now, there's a little bit of a reminder about a promo Grinding Gear Games are running related to Twitch as well. I've done a video on that already. I'll put a link to that on the screen in the last 20 seconds of this video. One very important thing Grinding Gear Games want. They want feedback on the game. Now, this can be balanced feedback, it can be bugs, but it can also be just XYZ skill feels terrible to use, or this brand of controller feels terrible to use, or whatever it happens to be. And there's a whole bunch of information there as to how you can provide that into a spot that Grinding Gear Games have got a whole bunch of employees that will then go and have a look at it. Won't necessarily act on every piece of feedback because there'll be a whole bunch of counterposed ideas people will have. There'll be people saying the game is too easy, there'll be people saying the game is too hard. Obviously you can't please both of them simultaneously, but I think one of the main things they're looking for is just anything that doesn't work the way that it's intended to. In particular, I'd urge you to report anything that your first intuition on is wrong. So if there's some sort of text that comes up from an item and it makes you sincerely believe it works a certain way, but then you hear from other players it actually works a different way, that's the sort of thing that's really important for them to know, because that'll be easy for them to fix. And if you've read something incorrectly, chances are a bunch of other people have as well. Fun fact, Grinding Gear Games support are currently receiving an email about every 24 seconds, so maybe hold off on sending them any emails at the moment. Other than that, they've just got a couple of final words that are a way of saying thank you, and I'd also want to say thank you to people who've been tuning into my coverage of spoiler season. It was flattering to tick over both 42,000 and 43,000 subscribers during this spoiler season. If you're not currently subscribed and you want to see my videos pop up on your feed, maybe about 3 times as often as they otherwise would, then subscribe. If you don't want to, that's cool too. And in terms of my content plans, once the game goes live, I want to get out a whole bunch of guides to bosses. I also want to get out guides to how critical hits work and how ailments work. And I will be working with gaming strategy site Mobalytics, who'll be publishing written versions of those guides as well. Anyways, I'm gonna leave it there. May your Varlobs have interesting results. I'm gonna go theory craft a blood mage, and once I've worked out exactly how I want to start, then I'll communicate that information with you as well. May your Varlobs have interesting results.